The release of millions of newly disclosed documents connected to Jeffrey Epstein has reopened one of the most disturbing and politically sensitive scandals of the modern era. This is not just about one individual. It is about how a convicted sex offender maintained access to global elites for years, and what that reveals about institutional failure, accountability gaps, and the limits of transparency. The newly released material represents the largest single disclosure of Epstein-related documents to date. Roughly 3 million pages, nearly 200,000 images, and thousands of videos were made public by the U.S. Department of Justice following a legally mandated review process. The documents span more than a decade and include prison records, psychological assessments, investigative files, internal correspondence, and material related to Ghislaine Maxwell's conviction. Together, they provide a clearer institutional timeline of how Epstein continued to operate, even after his 2008 conviction. According to the Justice Department, the release concludes a comprehensive review intended to meet statutory transparency requirements. But that claim is already being challenged. Lawmakers and legal experts have questioned whether all responsive documents were actually released. Millions of pages identified as potentially relevant remain withheld, raising concerns that transparency may still be incomplete. This tension, disclosure without certainty, defines the current moment. Some of the most scrutinized documents involve emails suggesting Epstein's continued access to Britain as elite circles. Correspondence from 2010, 2 years after Epstein pleaded guilty, references a figure identified as the Duke, widely understood to refer to Prince Andrew. The emails discuss private dinners at Buckingham Palace and potential introductions to a young Russian woman. The messages do not establish criminal conduct, but they reinforce a deeply troubling question. Why did social relationships with Epstein continue after his conviction? Additional correspondence also references Sarah Ferguson, describing Epstein in warm terms while he remained under restrictive legal conditions. The files further document financial interactions involving Epstein and individuals connected to senior political figures. Emails indicate that Epstein transferred funds in 2009 to the husband of Peter Mandelson. Other messages include requests from Mandelson to stay at Epstein-owned properties during the period of Epstein's incarceration. Mandelson has expressed regret over the association and denies witnessing any criminal behavior. Still, the disclosures reignite scrutiny over how political figures navigated relationships with Epstein after his crimes were publicly known. Donald Trump is mentioned hundreds of times across the documents. Trump has acknowledged a past friendship with Epstein, but maintains that the relationship ended well before Epstein's most serious legal troubles. The files include summaries of allegations submitted to the FBI tip line, many of which are unverified and unsupported by evidence. The Justice Department has emphasized that several claims in the files are false or sensationalist. Trump has not been charged with any Epstein-related crimes, and credible evidence would have resulted in prosecution. The distinction between mention and culpability is critical, and often lost in public discourse. Emails between Epstein and Elon Musk also appear in the files. They show discussions about potential visits to Epstein's private island in the early 2010s. There is no evidence that Musk ever traveled there. Musk has stated publicly that his concern is ensuring accountability for anyone who committed crimes, while warning against misinterpretation of partial records. Draft emails attributed to Epstein contain allegations involving Bill Gates. These messages may never have been sent. Gates' representatives have categorically rejected the claims, describing them as false and defamatory. Perhaps the most serious criticism of the release concerns victim protection. Prominent attorney Gloria Allred has condemned the disclosure process for exposing names and images of victims who had never spoken publicly. Although the law allows redactions to protect victims, advocates argue that the implementation failed. In some cases, identifying information remained visible. Once released and downloaded, the damage cannot be reversed. For many survivors, the cost of transparency has been deeply personal. That question remains unanswered. Lawmakers across parties continue to ask why millions of pages remain unreleased. Figures such as Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie have pledged further scrutiny. The Justice Department maintains that the files do not contain a definitive list of abusers, arguing that such evidence would have led to criminal charges. For critics, that explanation offers clarity without closure, transparency without resolution. Taken together, the Epstein files deepen public understanding of the networks surrounding Epstein. But they also expose something broader: institutional hesitation, fragmented accountability, and a system that protected itself more effectively than it protected victims. The documents add detail, but not finality. And for many observers, the central question remains unresolved. Will the full truth about Epstein's enablers ever be known?